Next, we're going to talk about plants because I like plants. Plants needed to attract all these beneficial insects to your yard. And so, hi everybody, my name is Tia Solvesi. I'm an extension agent with University of Florida, IFAS Extension in Hillsborough County. And I'm going to be talking about the top 10 pollinator plants for South Central Florida. So this is just a little bit of a teaser list, kind of starting from the small plants, and then I'll get up to some big plants. But you want to have a good diversity of plants in your yard to attract these beneficial insects. Here's one that is not very common. It's the heliotrope. And the common name is the pineland heliotrope. The genus used to be Heliotropis, but it's recently been changed to Euploca polyphylla. And it has kind of these curling flower arrangements. And what you can do with this is plant it as a ground cover. It's great as a border plant, and it does come in both a white and a yellow form. So this is a long-lived perennial. It does not die easily once you get it established, and it will attract all kinds of interesting insects like bees. Here in the picture is a four-spotted scolid wasp. And I learned about that wasp by observing it on the flower because I like plants and flowers. It is also extremely drought tolerant. It's kind of native to the South Florida area of the state. The next plant I'm going to talk about is Coreopsis, and this is our state wildflower. There are several species of Coreopsis native to Florida, and I'm just going to highlight the Coreopsis leavenworthii or Leavenworth's Coreopsis here. It has these beautiful yellow flowers with a dark brown center. You can see there are some insects pollinating them in this picture. And in the lower picture, you can see how tall it grows. It can get up to about, 2 or 3 feet. And so it's great in your garden because it will self-seed in the immediate area where it's planted if you're using pine straw or you don't have your mulch too thick. This does attract a lot of butterflies, bees, wasps, and it almost blooms all year round. There's many other Coreopsis species like the Coreopsis lanceolata that are common in native plant nurseries, and those are just equally beneficial. I just couldn't mention them all here. So see which one grows the best in your area and get some of those in your yard. You can also buy these in a seed pack for, $3 or $4 a seed pack from the Florida Wildflowers Growers Cooperative near Gainesville. The next one is a Florida-friendly plant called pentas. And, if you're just starting with a pollinator garden, this might be a go-to plant because it has that instant effect, that beautiful, vibrant color. It comes in pink, purple, white, red. The scientific name is Pentas lanceolata, and it's not native to Florida. It's native to East Africa, but it does very well in Florida. It is a long-lived annual or a perennial. It will live for a couple years. And it's just a great nectar source for all kinds of bees, butterflies, even hummingbirds. And one special note here, look for the old Florida varieties or the tall pentas, as some people call them, because they're larger plants and they'll have more blooms than the dwarf varieties that stay very small and compact, unless that's what you need for your landscape. The next one I'm going to talk about is milkweed, and there are many species of milkweed, both native and non-native. To keep this talk short, I'm just going to talk about 3 of the native species that are common in South Central Florida. The top one here is the orange one, the butterfly milkweed or Asclepias tuberosa. The one here in the middle is the swamp milkweed, Asclepias incarnata. And then the smallest one is the aquatic milkweed, Asclepias perennis. And all of these are supposed to be perennial, but they do go dormant in the winter, and that's what helps keeping the monarch butterfly migrating, down to Mexico, and also reduces disease pressure in butterflies. And so we do recommend the native milkweeds. If you're growing one of the non-native, the tropical milkweeds or a giant milkweed, it's better than turf grass or concrete, but we do recommend to plant the native varieties. And this attracts mostly butterflies. It is the larval host plant for a monarch and its relatives, like the queen and the soldier butterflies. And then it also is a nectar plant for a variety of pollinators. The next one here is the button sage lantana. And this is one of my newer favorite plants. You can see the picture on the right has an up close of the creamy white. They can be purple lavender flowers. All the flowers are the same color here. So don't get this confused. For the picture on the left here, which is Lantana chimera, which is a invasive species of lantana we recommend removing from your landscape. But the button sage lantana, it's almost like a small shrub. It can grow 3 to 4 feet tall and just be covered with flowers and pollinators all year round. It is a little sensitive to the cold, so maybe not recommended for North Florida. It is also extremely drought tolerant. So I plant this in areas where I can't get other things to grow. Maybe there's a landscape company that always mows and sprays, and this is one of my bulletproof go-to plants that if I start it from a 3-gallon pot and put it in, then it will survive. It's big enough that it won't get mowed over, or a little bit of herbicide won't kill it either, because it has a little bit of woodiness to it. Now moving into the small shrubs, the next one I'm going to talk about is wild coffee. And this has a great scientific name, Psychotria nervosa. So it is related to the coffee that we drink. And it does get these little red berries that are good for birds and other creatures. But this is a great pollinator plant. We have a hedge of this in front of our extension office. And if you look real close, you'll see honeybees and other pollinators visiting these clusters of white flowers. So if you are in South Florida, there is also the Bahama wild coffee, which is a little more cold sensitive, the Psychotria ligusturifolia, and that one has an even longer bloom period. So this is a great kind of bulletproof native to Florida shrub here. Next is the tea bush, and I don't like that common name for it. It should be called like bee magnet bush or something a little bit more catchy. Melochia tomentosa is the scientific name, and this is native to Florida. This is a great, specimen shrub, or you can plant a couple in a row. They do grow a little bit taller, like 5 to 6 feet tall. They are evergreen, and they have these small, whitish silver blue leaves, and then they just get covered in these small pink flowers, which insects love. Last year, when we did the pollinator census, I looked at this and there were too many insects to even count. I was just making mark after mark. It's just covered in insects. So if you're a native plant enthusiast, or you want to get something different for your yard, I would highly recommend this tea bush. And it is also very drought tolerant once established. Next is the beautyberry, because if you're a beginner gardener, this is a great shrub. It's native to Florida. The scientific name is Calicarpa americana, and it gets the name beautyberry from these beautiful stems covered in purple berries. But before there's berries, there's a ton of flowers that are great for pollinators. So this not only attracts pollinators such as bees, wasps, butterflies, but then the fruits also provide food for birds and other organisms. It's a great plant. It does lose its leaves, or it's deciduous, and so it will lose its leaves in the winter and it will just be like bare stems, and then it will flush out in the spring with all new growth and look very pretty with all the flowers and the berries. Next is the firebush. So firebush is a larger shrub. It can grow, 10 to 12, maybe even to 15 feet if you're not in a area that's get any freeze. But the scientific name is Hamelia patens, and this is native to Florida, native to South Florida, and it does stay evergreen. So this is one of those go-to landscape shrubs that everyone should have in their backyard, as part of their pollinator garden. It adds that height to attract different types of creatures. It supports a variety of bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, birds, and it does produce little berries too that are food for wildlife. If you are in a more cold sensitive area, this can completely freeze back, and then often it will grow back from the base. And if you need a smaller plant for a smaller space, there are a couple different dwarf cultivars or nativars of this firebush available. And so look for those dwarf varieties if you need it for a smaller space. So last but not least is the cabbage palm, and kind of moving into tree form, tree shape, but cabbage palms aren't technically trees, they're just palms. And the scientific name for this is sable palmetto. It is native to Florida. It's considered our state tree, even though it's not a true tree because it's not woody. And you wouldn't know by, just looking at it from afar, but this plant has a huge inflorescence, or that's just a fancy name for a flower stalk that has thousands of flowers. And you can see those covered in all kinds of insects and pollinators. So here's a photo actually of a saw palmetto, but you can see all those flowers just blooming at the same time. So palms actually provide a ton of flower and nectar resources for pollinators. So those are just the top 10, according to me. And we have an IPPM brochure that you'll receive as part of the webinar, and that some of these are listed in there too. But there are many, many more flowering species. So, look in your Florida Friendly Landscape Guide. We have the plant app online. There's also the Native Plant Society and the Florida Wildflower Foundation, and many more resources on pollinators and pollinator attracting plants for your landscape. So thank you very much for listening in and learning about the top plants you can plant in your yard for pollinators. Again, my name is Tia Silvasi, and I'm with UF IFAS Extension, Hillsborough County. So next I'm going to pass it on to Forrest, and Forrest is going to tell you what you can do to attract pollinators to your yard.